I ghosted my own $250,000 wedding. While 300 guests and my entire family waited, I was miles away marrying the man I love. Was I a runaway bride? Number. I was escaping a crime scene, and my own parents were the masterminds. My name is Harper Thorne, and I built my life on the belief that family was the bedrock of everything. That belief shattered on a Tuesday evening, surrounded by the scent of aging oak and damp earth in our family's wine cellar. I wasn't supposed to be there. I'd just come down to find a special vintage, a Cabernet Sauvignon from my birth year, to celebrate my engagement with my fiancé, Liam. But through an old air vent connecting to my father's study, their voices drifted down, clear and cold as ice. It's the only way, James. My mother's voice was firm. We'll merge her wedding with the Vineyard's grand relaunch. She gets her party, and we get the loan approved under her name. Her credit is flawless. My sister, Brooke, laughed, a sound like chimes in a storm. Harper won't even notice. She's always been the responsible one. She'll just see it as her duty to the Thorne legacy. The bottle I was holding slipped, hitting the stone floor with a dull thud, but thankfully not breaking. My wedding wasn't a celebration of my love. It was collateral. I was not their daughter, not their sister. I was a financial instrument, a key to unlock a future they desired, regardless of what it cost me. If you've ever felt like the invisible pillar holding your family up, the one whose sacrifices are just expected, do me a favor and hit that like button so I know I'm not alone in this. That night, I realized the family I had dedicated my life to protecting didn't actually exist. Standing there in the cold, I felt a ghost of a memory wrap around me, as familiar and unwelcome as the cellar damp. This wasn't a new script. It was just a rerun with higher stakes. 7 years ago, I was packing my bags for business school, a letter of acceptance and a $50,000 savings account my entire future tucked away. Then the call came. Brooke's artisanal textile business, a venture funded by her charm and my parents' indulgence, had imploded. She was drowning in debt to suppliers, and her creative spirit was at risk, as my mother put it. I remember sitting in my father's study, the same room they were in now, as he explained it to me. Harper, you understand numbers. You can always make more money. Your sister. She feels things deeply. This failure could break her. It wasn't a question. It was a verdict. My MBA was a dream. My sister's emotional comfort was an immediate necessity. I signed the check, and just like that, my future was postponed indefinitely to clean up her mess. She gave me a breezy, "You're a lifesaver," and never mentioned it again. Now, the chill in the cellar felt exactly like the hollowness I felt that day, the silent, bitter understanding that in my family, my dreams were always seen as deferrable, and my resources were simply part of the family treasury to be used for any crisis but my own. I wonder what time it is where you are right now, watching this. For me, that memory always comes back in the dead of night. If you're a fellow night owl, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. As the memory faded, leaving its bitter taste, something inside me shifted. The cold from the stone floor seemed to travel up my spine and solidify into a rod of steel. For 7 years, I had mourned the loss of my MBA as a sacrifice. A noble, daughterly sacrifice. But standing there, listening to the echoes of their plotting, I saw it for what it was, a theft. They hadn't just taken my money, they had stolen my time, my ambition, and my trust, wrapping the theft in the pretty paper of family duty. I pushed myself to my feet, my knees aching. In the dim light, I caught my reflection in the dark green glass of a dusty wine bottle. The woman staring back at me looked tired, haunted, and dangerously close to breaking. A single, furious thought ignited in the darkness of my mind. Never again. It wasn't a shout. It was a whisper that shook the foundations of my world. Never again would my future be the collateral for my sister's whims. Never again would my hard-earned security be treated as a communal resource. I thought of Liam upstairs, his easy laugh, his unwavering belief in me, the equal partnership we were building. This wasn't just about a loan or a wedding anymore. This was about drawing a line in the soil of my own life. They wanted to mortgage my future to fund their fantasy. And in that moment, I vowed I would not let them. I would let them build their beautiful, elaborate trap, and then I would be the one to spring it. I walked back up the stairs from the cellar, the heavy bottle of Cabernet feeling like a prop in a play I no longer wanted to be in. I fixed a smile on my face, a mask I'd perfected over 28 years, and entered the dining room. The table was set with our best silver gleaming under the chandelier. Liam's face lit up when he saw me, and for a second, the warmth in his eyes almost made me forget the ice in my veins. But then my father stood, glass in hand. "A toast," he announced, his voice booming with false sentiment. "To Harper and Liam. And to a brilliant idea your mother and I had. An idea that will honor both this beautiful union and the future of Thorn Vineyards." I felt Liam's hand find mine under the table. "We've decided," my father continued, "to combine your wedding with the grand relaunch of the vineyard. A single, spectacular event. It's the perfect synergy." Brooke clapped her hands. "Imagine it, Harp. Your wedding photos in Wine Spectator. It's genius." I took a slow sip of water, the silence stretching. "That's a lot to consider," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "We'll need time to think about it." A flicker of annoyance crossed my mother's face before being replaced by a dazzling smile. "Oh, sweetie, there's nothing to think about. We'll handle everything. You just focus on being the beautiful bride." The condescension was suffocating. They weren't asking, they were informing me of my new reality. This is that moment, isn't it? The fork in the road. I'd love to know what you were thinking right then. Type 1 in the comments if you think I should have just walked away then and there, or type 2 if you believe this was a battle I had to stay and fight. Later that night, long after Liam had kissed me goodnight with a worried look in his eyes, I told my parents I was too tired to drive and would stay in my childhood bedroom. But sleep was the furthest thing from my mind. Around 2 a.m., when the old house was groaning with silence, I slipped out of bed and crept down the hallway to my father's study. The door was unlocked. Of course it was. In his mind, he had no secrets to hide, only plans to execute. The computer was asleep, not off. I tapped the space bar, and the screen blinked to life, asking for a password. I typed Thorn Legacy 1, and my breath caught as the desktop appeared. His arrogance was my key. His email was already open. It didn't take any digging. The subject lines were a roadmap to my ruin. Relaunch event, venue deposit, loan application follow, up, Brooks Design Concepts. I clicked on the loan application thread, my stomach twisting into a knot. It was an email from my father to a loan officer at a commercial bank. "We are moving forward with the $2.5 million expansion loan," it read. "My eldest daughter, Harper, whose financial portfolio I've attached, will be the primary signatory. Her full backing ensures the viability of this project." My portfolio. My life's work, attached like an appendix to their scheme. I scrolled further, finding emails to vendors, planners, and designers, all with the same casual, confident lie. Harper Thorn will be handling the financials. They hadn't just plotted, they had acted. They had offered up my name, my reputation, and my financial security on an altar to their own ambition, without my knowledge or consent. My blood ran cold, but I couldn't stop. A morbid curiosity pulled me deeper into the digital labyrinth of their deceit. My eyes caught a brightly colored folder on the desktop, simply labeled Brooks Vision. I clicked. It was a hurricane of extravagance. Mood boards for a 300-guest gala, lighting schematics fit for a movie premiere, and a mock-up of the invitation. My breath caught in my throat. In sweeping, gold leaf calligraphy, it read, "Thorn Vineyards invites you to the Bloom and Vow Gala." And there, underneath, in a plain, tiny font, almost like an afterthought, it said, "Celebrating the nuptials of Harper Thorn and Liam Miller." I was a footnote at my own wedding. It was a corporate event featuring a bride. Then I saw it. A file named Hostess Gown, Final Invoice. I opened it, assuming it was a dress they'd presumptuously picked for me. But the attached sketch wasn't a wedding gown. It was a show-stopping, champagne-colored couture dress designed for a queen. The invoice was from a designer in New York. The bill was for $15,000, and the client name was Brooke Thorn. But the real dagger was the note at the bottom, a neat little sentence from my mother to the designer. "Please send the final bill directly to Harper Thorn. She's taking care of all event costs." This was the true heart of the matter. The loan was business, but this was personal. This was my sister planning to be the star of a party I was being forced to pay for, a party that was supposed to be about the beginning of my new life. It was a quiet, brutal assassination of my role as the bride. The anger over the dress was a hot flash, but what I found next was a creeping, systemic rot. I navigated away from the invoice, my fingers moving with a cold precision I didn't know I possessed. I was no longer looking for personal insults. I was looking for the master plan. And I found it. A single Excel file named B Master Budget. My mother's meticulous organization was all over it. There were tabs for vendors, guests, and a summary sheet that laid out the entire financial fantasy in chilling detail. Venue rental for the historic Grand Ballroom, $50,000. Catering by a celebrity chef, $80,000. Brooke's vision, including a custom-built floral canopy, $45,000. Her own hostess gown was listed right there, a neat little $15,000 line item. The grand total at the bottom of the page was a staggering $250,000, but it was the line at the very top that made the air leave my lungs. It read, Phase 1 deposits, non-refundable. The amount was $75,000, and in the notes column next to it, a typed comment, payable by H. Thorne upon signing a venue contract to secure loan pre-approval. They had engineered a financial kill switch. The moment I signed a single piece of paper, I would be on the hook for a sum that could cripple me, a sum that was the down payment on the life Liam and I were supposed to build together. It's amazing how a number on a screen can feel like a physical weight on your chest, isn't it? If you've ever been in a situation where a financial burden felt like it was suffocating you, share your story of how you pushed through in the comments below. Your strength might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. I didn't just sit there wallowing in the cold glow of the monitor. A strange clarity washed over me. This was a crime scene, and I needed evidence. My hands, which had been trembling, were now perfectly steady. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. Click. The email where my father offered up my financial portfolio. Click. The invitation mock-up that made me a footnote. Click. The $15,000 invoice for Brooke's gown. Click. The master budget, with its $75,000 non-refundable trap. I documented everything, creating a digital folder of my family's betrayal. Then, I closed every window, put the computer back to sleep, and slipped out of the study. I didn't go back to my childhood bed. I walked out the front door, got in my car, and drove through the silent, sleeping suburbs to Liam's apartment. It was nearly 3 a.m. when I laid my phone on his coffee table and said, "You need to see this." He sat in silence, scrolling through the photos, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief, and then to a cold, hard fury I had never seen before. He didn't try to soften it. He didn't make excuses for them. He looked up at me, his eyes blazing. "Harper, this isn't just family drama. This is conspiracy to commit fraud. They're using your identity to secure a loan. That is a crime." He stood up and started pacing. "This is a calculated attack on our future." He stopped and looked at me. "We are not fighting this alone. Call Zoe. Wake her up. We need a lawyer, and we need one now." Zoe's voice over the speakerphone at 3:30 a.m. was the calmest thing I'd heard all night. She'd seen all the screenshots, and she didn't waste time on sympathy. She went straight to strategy. "Okay, so your first instinct is to confront them, burn it all down." "Don't," she said, her voice sharp. "They've been crafting this narrative your whole life, Harper. If you scream, you're hysterical. If you refuse, you're ungrateful. You'll become the villain of their story." Liam nodded, his jaw tight. "So what do we do?" I whispered. There was a pause, and I could almost hear the gears turning in Zoe's legal mind. "We don't stop them," she said slowly. "We help them. We let them build this ridiculous, extravagant monument to their own egos. We let them plan the party of the century." I was confused, but she continued. "You're going to play the part of the dutiful daughter. You will agree to their vision. But when it comes time to sign the contracts, the venue, the caterers, all of it, you will insist that, since this is a corporate relaunch, your father must sign as the official representative of Thorne Vineyards. Frame it as a necessary legal protection for the company." The beautiful, simple brilliance of it hit me like a lightning bolt. A decoy. a massive $250,000 decoy. While they were drowning in floral arrangements and seating charts for their fake gala, Liam and I would plan our real wedding. Something small, secret, and entirely ours. There's a certain thrill in a perfectly crafted plan, isn't there? A little moment of delicious justice. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being pure genius, how would you rate this strategy? Let me know your score in the comments. The next few weeks were a masterclass in deception. I spent my days on cheerful calls with my mother, nodding along to her breathless updates about the Bloom and Vow Gala. By night, Liam and I secretly planned our real wedding and intimate ceremony at a tiny, historic chapel by the coast. To feel a flicker of real joy, I made an appointment at a small, independent bridal boutique with Zoe. I found a dress. It was simple, elegant, made of heavy ivory silk that felt like liquid moonlight. When I put it on, I saw myself in the mirror, not the family's financial instrument, but a bride. Happy. For a moment, I forgot the war I was waging. And then, the little bell on the shop door jingled, and my mother and Brooke swept in. What a coincidence. My mother chirped, her eyes scanning my dress with a critical gaze. Brooke circled me, a smirk playing on her lips. Well, that's understated, she said, her tone dripping with false sweetness. A bit safe for the Thorn name, don't you think? Before I could answer, she pulled a small, unlabeled bottle of dark red wine from her purse. Just a sample of our new reserve for the gala sommelier, she explained, pouring a splash into a nearby water glass. She took a theatrical sip, gestured with her hand, and then tripped. The dark, blood-red wine arced through the air, splattering across the pristine silk of my dress in a grotesque bloom. Oh no, she gasped. My mother rushed over, dabbing at the stain. Don't you worry, sweetie, she cooed. It's a sign. This simple little thing was never meant to be. Now we can get you a real gown, something worthy of the occasion. The wine stain on that silk dress washed away my last shred of guilt. It was the final piece of evidence I needed that their cruelty was not accidental. A week later, my father summoned Liam and me to the vineyard's formal boardroom for what he called a kickoff meeting. The manager of the grand venue we were supposedly booking was on a large screen via video call, smiling professionally. My father, in his element, sat at the head of the long mahogany table. All right, he began, pushing a thick contract across the table toward me. This is the master agreement for the venue. We need your signature and the wire transfer for the $75,000 deposit by end of day to lock it in. He slid his heavy, gold-plated fountain pen next to the document. This was it, the moment our entire plan hinged on. I took a deep breath, looked at the papers, and then gave my father my most earnest, businesslike smile. This looks fantastic, Dad. You've all done incredible work, I began, just as Zoe had coached me. But since this is a major corporate relaunch event for Thorn Vineyards, my lawyer was very clear. For liability and tax reasons, the master contract must be in the company's name and signed by you as president. It's the only way to properly protect the business. A flicker of something annoyance? Panic crossed his face. My mother started to speak, but I continued smoothly. Liam and I will happily sign a separate, smaller agreement for our personal ceremony costs, of course. This is just a legal formality to keep everything clean. My father was cornered. To argue would be to admit his plan was to put me on the hook. His ego took over. Of course, he said, a little too loudly. A formality. He picked up his pen and, with a confident flourish, signed his name on the dotted line. Have you ever felt that incredible rush when a long-shot plan actually works? That moment when the tide finally turns in your favor? If you know that feeling, leave a single word in the comments that describes it. I'd love to read them. The day of the Bloom and Vow Gala arrived on a perfect, sun-drenched Saturday in June. My phone started buzzing at 7 a.m. It was a stream of consciousness text from my mother. The floral arch is even more spectacular than the sketches. Your father is greeting the media crew now. Brooke looks like a goddess in her gown. Are you in hair and makeup yet? Don't be late. I was, in fact, getting ready. But I was 3 hours away, in a small suite at a coastal inn overlooking the Pacific Ocean. I laid out the new dress I'd bought, a simple, off-the-rack sheath of ivory crepe that I loved more than the first. I did my own makeup. I put a few wildflowers in my hair. I sent one last text back to my mother. Just finishing up. Can't wait for the big celebration. Then, I turned my phone off. There was no media crew at our wedding. There were 20 chairs, set up in a tiny, 100-year-old chapel with windows that opened to the sea breeze. Our guests were Liam's wonderful parents, Zoe, and the handful of friends who had become our true family. As I walked down the short aisle, I saw Liam waiting for me. His eyes filled with a love so real and profound it took my breath away. We said our own vows, promising partnership, honesty, and respect. We promised to protect our peace. When he kissed me, the only sounds were the soft applause of our friends and the distant cry of seagulls. There were no chandeliers, no celebrity chefs, no corporate sponsors. There was just us. It wasn't a transaction or a performance. It was a promise. And for the first time in my life, I felt completely, unshakably free. While Liam and I were dancing barefoot on a deck overlooking the ocean, the fantasy my family had built was beginning to crumble. We had an inside source, of course. Zoe's sharp young paralegal, posing as a distant cousin's plus one, sent us updates. The first text came at 6 p.m., the scheduled start of the ceremony. Everything looks ridiculously expensive. 300 plus guests. No sign of the bride. The next one came at 6:45. Okay, the mood is shifting. People are whispering. Your dad is pacing by the entrance, red-faced. Your mom is making frantic calls. Brooke is trying desperately to keep everyone entertained, but she looks furious. The final, most glorious report came just after 7:30. It's officially imploding. The celebrity chef and the venue manager cornered your father in the main hall. In front of everyone. They had clipboards. I could hear the manager say, "Mr. Thorne, the final installment was due upon the bride's arrival." He tried to bluster his way out of it, but they weren't budging. He signed the contract. It's his liability. I could picture it perfectly. My father, the great patriarch, trapped in the center of the glittering ballroom, his perfect illusion shattering under the weight of his own signature. The guests were watching. The media was watching. The whole world they had built to impress was now witnessing their epic, public humiliation. You know, some people call it karma, others call it consequences. But there is nothing quite like the moment when someone finally has to pay the bill they tried to stick you with. If you've ever witnessed a moment of perfect, undeniable karma, you have to share the story in the comments. We all need to hear it. The next morning, as Liam and I were sipping coffee on the porch of our small rented beach house, a black SUV came roaring down the gravel driveway. They stumbled out, faces pale with fury and lack of sleep. My father stormed towards me first. "What have you done?" He bellowed, his voice hoarse. "The bank has frozen our accounts pending a fraud investigation. The vineyard's reputation is in ruins." My mother was weeping, and Brooke just stared at me with pure, venomous hatred. "You did this to us," she hissed. "You humiliated us." I stood and calmly opened the door. "Please, come in," I said, my voice even. "I've been waiting for you." They followed me into the living room, confused by my lack of fear. I picked up my phone and tapped the screen. The small living room television flickered to life, mirroring my phone. "I thought it was time we reviewed the project plan," I said coolly. And then I began. One by one, the screenshots I'd taken in the study filled the screen. First, the email to the loan officer, with my father's words promising my full backing in black and white. Then, the gala invitation that reduced my marriage to a footnote. Then, the invoice for Brooke's $15,000 hostess gown. And finally, the master budget, with the $75,000 deposit and the note making me responsible. With each slide, their faces grew paler. Their angry accusations died in their throats, replaced by a thick, horrified silence. "You didn't just want me to pay for a party," I said, my voice quiet but cutting through the silence. "You conspired to commit fraud using my name. You tried to trap me in a $250,000 debt. You didn't humiliate yourselves. I simply let the truth do it for you." In the stunned silence of that beach house living room, I didn't feel triumph. I just felt quiet. I asked them to leave, and for the first time in my life, they did as I asked, without argument. That was a year ago. We didn't speak again for a long time. The fallout was catastrophic for them. The aborted gala, coupled with the fraud investigation from the bank, was a public relations nightmare. Thorn Vineyards, unable to secure any new funding, was sold for parts 6 months later. The legacy my father was willing to sacrifice me for was gone, consumed by his own hubris. My mother lost her social standing. And Brooke had to get a job. Liam and I took the money we'd saved for a house down payment and instead started our own small business consultancy, helping other entrepreneurs navigate the very contracts and financial traps that were almost used to ruin me. Then, 2 months ago, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Brooke. Her voice was different, quieter, hesitant. She told me she was in therapy. She said she was learning words like accountability and boundaries. And then she said the words I never thought I would hear. "I'm sorry, Harper. Not just for the wedding, but for all of it. For my entire life, I saw you as my safety net, not my sister. It was wrong, and I'm sorry. I didn't offer easy forgiveness, but I did offer thanks." It was a start, a crack of light in a door I thought was sealed shut forever. It's funny, looking back. The victory I thought I wanted was that moment in the beach house, with the evidence on the screen and my family in stunned silence. But the real victory, the one that has truly lasted, was that quiet phone call with my sister a year later. It made me realize that this whole journey was never really about revenge. It was about rescuing myself. For years, I thought my role was to absorb the shock, to be the steady, responsible pillar so that others could be free to be reckless. But I learned that enabling dysfunction isn't a form of love, it's a form of self-destruction. The hardest and most important lesson was this: setting a boundary is not an attack. It is an act of profound self-respect. It's a way of teaching people how you deserve to be treated. And sometimes, by refusing to be their safety net, you give them the unwelcome but necessary gift of finally hitting the ground and learning how to stand up on their own. My family isn't the Grand Vineyard or the Thorn name. My family is my husband, who saw my worth when I was struggling to see it myself. It's my friend Zoe, who armed me with logic when I was drowning in emotion. It's the small circle of people who celebrated our love by a windy coast, asking for nothing in return. I didn't destroy my family's legacy. I simply chose to start my own, built on a foundation of truth, not obligation. And my greatest hope is that my story can be a small reminder of your own strength. If you believe in the power of writing your own narrative and living a life that is authentically yours, then hit that subscribe button and join our community. Because we all deserve to be the main character in our own story.